Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we will be discussing that the police union, the FOP, and the IACP issued a call to action against HR 38. Now, what is HR 38? HR 38 is a bill that you might not have heard of, but it is basically national reciprocity coming out of the federal government. As soon as Congress and the Senate come back in, they're going to vote on it. So that's great news. However, the police unions have come out against it. Now, before we get too deep into it, I just want to say thank you for watching. And down in the description below, always is going to be a link to the merch store where you can pick up your awesome Gun Guru merch. It is the winter and we have hoodies available. That being said, you can also become a member here on YouTube, Patreon, or Locals, and we do some things behind the scenes. You can also just simply like this video, share it with everybody you know, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, toggle that notification bell, making sure you always get updated anytime I put up a new video or I do one of my Saturday Night Lives. All right, guys, don't forget, this Saturday coming up, the 22nd of November, is just an open mic night. Basically, it's a Q&A. So get your questions in, and I will do my best to answer them. You can post your questions across all social media, anywhere you can find Gun Guru Actual, or if you go into the posts here at YouTube, you're going to see the Q&A post, and I will do my best to answer all your questions. You can also just jump right into the comment section during the live and start asking questions. We might have one or two news articles from the week to cover, but most of it's going to be a pretty relaxing night, just a little Q&A, because we're not doing a live next Saturday because of Thanksgiving, and we're going to be spending time with friends and family. All right, let's get into it. So we know HR 38 is up on the block to be discussed and, of course, voted on, all that good stuff. So the police union, the FOP, and the IACP issued a statement yesterday, and it's pretty lengthy. I'm going to put it up on the screen for you to read. And they're basically totally against it. Here's what they had to say. Leadership from the U.S. House of Representatives recently announced that consideration of HR 38, the Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act, will be a priority when Congress returns. The National Fraternal Order of Police, or FOP, and the International Association of Chiefs Police, IACP, which collectively represent the majority of rank-and-file officers and police executives, have serious reservations about the impact on the legislation it would have on officers' safety, officer liability, qualified immunity, and state and local gun safety laws. The legislation exempts any person with a valid photographic identification from the state or local firearms law who asserts that they are lawfully carrying a firearm under the laws of their own state of residence. This is problematic, but most concerning provision of HR 38 is that it prohibits law enforcement officers from making any arrest or detaining a suspect for any violation of state or local laws pertaining to the possession, transportation, or carriage of a firearm. This also includes several federal laws such as carriage in school zones and federally managed lands. This bill goes further and provides that any person who is deprived of any right, privilege, or immunity may sue a law enforcement officer who could not be afforded qualified immunity. This makes it impossible for an officer to conduct an investigation with respect to asserting if the person is in fact compliant with firearms law in their state of residence. It also exposes the officer to civil liability if, for example, they were to secure the firearm while they were conducting an investigation into other suspected criminal activities. Officers would be expected to interpret and apply laws from all 50 states in real time without reliable means to verify the individual's eligibility to carry concealed weapons, especially those from permitless carry states with no physical permit exists. This leaves law enforcement unable to confirm lawful possession during encounters, creating confusion and heightened risk in high-stakes situations. Impact on officer safety and legal liability. Law enforcement officers are most likely to encounter armed citizens when responding to a disturbance call or making a traffic stop. In 2024, 92 officers were shot when answering a disturbance call, 8 of whom were killed. In that same time, 49 law enforcement officers were shot during traffic stops, 12 of whom were killed. These two types of calls represent 44% of all officers shot in the line of duty in 2024. Officers handle these encounters differently if their suspect is armed or discovered to be armed. This is for their safety, the suspect's safety, and public safety. If a driver from Vermont, a state that allows a resident to carry a firearm without a license or a permit, is stopped by a Virginia state trooper, as soon as the driver provides a valid photographic identification and asserts he or she is lawfully carrying under the laws of Vermont, he or she has to meet the requirements of H.R. 38. The driver is not subject to any Virginia firearms laws, and because the bill includes provisions that the law allows individuals to sue law enforcement officers and agencies for detention or arrest related to the concealed carry, the trooper would be placing himself, I'd say, or herself, in legal jeopardy and taking any action that could be construed as depriving the driver of any rights or privileges. This would include securing the firearm to determine if the driver is impaired or engaged in other criminal activity unrelated to the firearm. The inability to confirm whether someone is lawfully carrying a concealed firearm increases the risk of firearm encounters and reduces situational awareness in the officers in the field. No officer should be placed at greater risk just because they cannot use common practices which officers in every jurisdiction are trained to do when encountering an armed suspect. Jeopardizes qualified immunity. The bill also seems to cancel any qualified immunity for the officer, as the right of the Americans to bear arms is guaranteed by the Second Amendment. Qualified immunity protects officers from civil liability unless they violate clearly established statutory and constitutional rights. Any action the officer may take in reaction to the knowledge that the person they have encountered is armed could place the officer in a very real legal peril. As described above, officers who fear their actions may result in personal liability means that no encounter with an armed suspect would be routine or by the book, because this legislation rewrites the book. Undermines state sovereignty with authority to investigate. Many states already recognize concealed carry permits from jurisdictions with comparable requirements, such as live training and enhanced background checks. These agreements respect state sovereignty and public safety without federal overreach. This legislation would override these tailored arrangements and strip states of their ability to set and enforce their own standards for concealed carry. Instead of officers being thoroughly trained on their state and local gun safety laws, officers will be expected to interpret and apply laws from all 50 states in real time without reliable means to verify an individual's eligibility to carry concealed weapons, especially those from permitless carry states with no physical permit exists. Conclusion. While the FOP and the IACP support the Second Amendment, I find that hard to believe, and respect the rights of lawful and responsible gun ownership, the specific provisions of H.R. 38 present serious concerns for a law enforcement officer. The bill's creation of personal liability for officers, combined with the erosion of state and local authorities to regulate firearms and conduct reasonable investigations of armed suspects, threatens officer safety and exposes agencies and officers to costly litigation. For these reasons, the FOP and IACP urge the U.S. House of Representatives to reject H.R. 38, the Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act, should it come to the floor for a vote. All right, so let's break this down, because here in Connecticut, we've actually had a few of these problems. So in the second paragraph, they go on to say, and I quote, that are lawfully carrying a firearm under the laws of their own state of residence. Even today, when we have, say, a Utah permit, or an Arizona permit, or Florida permit, or whatever permit it is, that gives us all these other states of reciprocity, we are governed by the state's laws that we're in, because they do wildly swing. Things like in Utah, if you're a Utah resident with a Utah permit, you can carry on, say, like a college campus. That's perfectly legal. It's open to the public. You can carry. That's state law. However, here in Connecticut, you cannot. Just because you're from Utah with a Utah permit doesn't magically allow you to then carry on, say, Connecticut's campuses. Our laws say you can't. Therefore, it is our responsibility as lawful gun owners to understand the laws for all the states that we go into. That's how it is now, and that's how it should be going forward. I don't know why they're saying that, well, if you're from another state, then you have a different set of laws. Yeah, but you're in a different state, and you're governed by those laws, not the laws of your state. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Next, I want to address officers would be expected to interpret and apply laws from all 50 states in real time. Listen, when it comes to laws, again, you are beholden to the laws of the state that you're in. Just because you're from another state doesn't mean squat. Like when we're driving through states, if you're coming from out west, say Texas, where speed limits are like 80 miles an hour, and then you're traveling up, say, 91, where the speed limit is 65, and you're pulled over for speeding because you're doing 80, you can't be like, whoa, I've got a Texas driver's license. Our speed limits are 80. We get to do what we want. That's not how it works. You are beholden to the laws of the land you are in. The next thing I wanted to address is where it says, this leaves law enforcement unable to confirm lawful possession during encounters, creating confusion and heightened risk in a high-stakes situation. Here's the deal. It's a constitutional right. I am innocent till proven guilty. This makes it sound like, oh, no. If someone's got a gun lawfully, they're guilty till proven innocent. And that's what your gun permit is for. No. If I'm a lawful carrier of a firearm and I have committed no crimes, I'm innocent. You have to assume I'm allowed to have this firearm. You don't get to say, well, I think you're guilty till proven otherwise. That's a bunch of crap. Now, when they give the little example about the driver from being in Virginia, if I have a Utah permit, it's going to work the same way, all right? Just because you're from Vermont doesn't mean in Virginia you're only beholden to Vermont's laws, right? You still have to obey Virginia's laws because those are the laws in Virginia. But this is coming down dealing with reciprocity, just like our driver's license for moving motor vehicles, right? Where I can leave one state, travel to another state through that imaginary line, and I'm still allowed to operate a vehicle lawfully because I have a driver's license. Granted, driving is not a right. Driving is a privilege. Now, traveling from states to state, that is a right. I can travel. They don't give me the sovereign citizen crap in the comment section. I can go from one state to another without having to go through checkpoints. It is my right. But operating a motor vehicle from state to state has always been a privilege and always shall be a privilege. It's not a right. Where they go on to say the inability to confirm whether someone is lawfully carrying a concealed firearm increases the risk of armed encounters and reduces situational awareness. Listen, again, innocent till proven guilty, err on, they're lawful till proven otherwise. In fact, you can't take my gun unless you suspect me of committing some sort of crime. You don't get to run the serial number on my gun unless I am suspected of a crime. If you're pulling me over for a simple traffic stop, you don't get to pull me out. If I'm like, hey, here's my driver's license, here's my proof of insurance, here is my registration, I am lawfully carrying, it is at, say, my 12 o'clock position, they don't get to just rip you out of the vehicle, handcuff you, yoink your gun away, and start investigating other things solely based on the fact that you have a firearm. When it comes to the qualified immunity, I bring it up specifically because I did a video, this happened last year, where an individual out of Waterbury was stopped via a Terry stop, and he gave his permit over, and he told the officer that he was carrying, which is lawful. He presented his ID, his permit, which showed him that he was lawfully carrying, and he's a Connecticut resident with a Connecticut permit. Waterbury PD pulls him out of his car. They detain him, put him in the back of a PD car. They run his gun and then search his vehicle, clearly violating his rights. Now, when all this was said and done, there were no other crimes, and the individual involved, the victim here, not only civilly sued the officer, but the department and the town. And he won. Now, the state of Connecticut, at a local level, they appealed, and it ended up going up to Second Circuit Court. And they were trying to use things like qualified immunity and this, that, and the other thing. Even the Second Circuit Court said, no, you violated his rights. Just because he has a permit does not give you carte blanche to detain and search his vehicle in search of other crimes. He got a massive payout. And in one of the last paragraphs, it says, without reliable means to verify an individual's eligibility to carry concealed weapons, especially those from permitless carry states with no physical permit exists. Here's the deal. When you get pulled over, you see it all the time. When they take your driver's license, they plug you into a database, not only for local, but for other states. And it will come back if you have warrants. Thus, they will arrest you if you have an open warrant. Even if you're in, say, Nebraska, you have an open warrant in Massachusetts, they can still see that. So obviously, if you have an open warrant for your arrest, well, you're going to get arrested anyways. But if you don't have any warrants out for your arrest, and there's nothing that says that you're a bad guy, an evildoer, how hard is this to understand? Literally, it sounds like that these police unions were just basically saying, hey, we want guns for me, but not for thee. They're making it sound like it's going to make their job so much more dangerous. Listen, they pull people over all the time, and they really have no idea if they're armed or not. So nothing is going to change. Hell, here in Connecticut, you have no obligation to inform the officer that just pulled you over that you are currently carrying a firearm. Now, granted, we always recommend that you volunteer this information and proceed with their instructions and, be safe about it. Just because we do have a database. And once they run your license plate, they're going to get your registration, your driver's license, and the gun permit is attached to the driver's license. Thus, they can see if it's in good standing, expired, or if it's been revoked. So they have a good idea that you might have a gun. But then again, even if they ask you straight to your face, you don't have to tell them. You are not compelled by state law to inform them that you are carrying. However, like I always recommend to my students, if you say no and then start moving around within your vehicle and the officer sees the outline of your gun through your clothing, or they see a little bit of the holster or the firearm, you got to think, are you de-escalating or escalating that situation? Because the officer is going to feel like you lied to them and like you had something to hide, even though technically you're not breaking any laws. Thus, it's always best to volunteer that information and just get through as fast as you can, get out with your warning, your ticket, or whatever may happen. It's always my advice. I think it's pretty sad and pretty sick that the police unions have come out against H.R. 38. Granted, it is just sitting there waiting to be discussed and voted on. So when I know more, I'll let you know more. I really hope this goes through. It has been a campaign promise since the first time Trump was elected. Let's get H.R. 38 pushed all the way through so we can stop having to collect all these permits from all these different states, and we can just get maybe the permit in our home state, and it will be good enough for us to transport our firearms lawfully on our person across state lines and carry within the realm of the laws of the land that we're in. Is that too hard to ask? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Am I missing the mark? Do you think the cops are missing the mark? And everyone always asks me why I always have videos where I'm lambasting cops. Because of stuff like this. Okay, half the time, they're not on your side. Just look at the way you're treated here in Connecticut by the PD when you're pulled over and you're lawfully carrying. They treat you like you're the criminal. But God forbid you're a real criminal with a gun illegally, well, you're going to get the benefit of the doubt, and they're going to go, kid gloves and all that jazz because, our state is just backwards. All right, that's all I got for you guys in this video. I will see all of you in the next video. Go on down in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys in the next one.